Okay, test, test, test. 1, 2, 3. What do you see? You know me. This is my environment. This is my culture. Let's take a look at what we see. So, okay, this is my Canvas account. So right here we're looking at a B. I barely made the B in College Algebra, but I did take it online and I never really asked for help, which is I should have, because I might have gotten the A. So let's take a look, because I don't want to violate any policies or anything like that. So we're not going to take a look at test questions, but we'll go ahead and take a look at a practice problem. So let's go and find this practice problem. We'll start with the first practice problem you'll probably encounter if you do online college algebra. So with that said, let's just dive right in. It was practice quiz number 1, so this would be your first quiz. This is what you're expected to know. So we'll open that up. Okay. So this is a practice problem in discussion form. And I am the only one that discussed it. So that just lets you know a little bit about the class I was in. So taking a look, it says practice quiz number 1, problem number 2. The directions state, fill in the missing information. Let A be a real number and suppose 1 less than x less than 2 implies that 1 over the square root of a is less than 1 over the square root of 3x plus 1 less than 1/2. Then the exact of A is. So they want to know what A is. A equals what? So with this being a practice problem, here's the solution. This is what you're going to get. You'll be able to look at it and try to figure out how they came up with the solution. Now, I want to state that I snipped this problem out and I printed it out on bonding paper and I took it somewhere, I'm not going to say where, and I showed it to another student in college that is just about to get their bachelor's degree. So it's kind of tricky to look at, and it took me a little bit to figure it out. But with that said, yeah, so by the time I got the bonding paper back with the problem on it to see if they could figure out the answer, there were so many eraser marks that the bonding paper literally turned into a coffee filter. I mean, it was just that thin. And the whole time the answer's right here. A equals 7. Because right there, square root of 7. So the answer in math lab, you just would put 7, not square root of 7, it would be 7. So how did we come up with the solution? Well, it says right here, solution. The aim is to get the middle part of both inequalities to be the same, and we will be able to compare the outer portions of the inequalities. Therefore, start with. So they're starting with 1 is less than x less than 2. Okay? Here's the shortcut. We need to turn this inequality into this by manipulation. Okay? You're not going to photo map this. I'm sorry. You're just not going to happen. You need to know rules. You need to know your rules. Period. So, but let's go ahead and move on and let me show you what I posted in the discussion about practice problem number 2 for your first quiz. Now, this is not a test question, so I'm not in violation of anything, okay? But with that said, the test questions will be very similar, so you need to understand how to set this up. It would be much easier for me to do it on a whiteboard, but since I already have it here in this in discussion form, well, let's just take a look. So, and this is me here, what needs to be done to get 1 is less than x is less than 2 to get 1 over the square root of a is less than 1 over the square root of 3x plus 2 is less than 1/2. Alright, so here it is on paper. So there's the first inequality, there's the second inequality. There's 2 inequalities here. Alright, so here's the first one. 1 is less than x, which is less than 2. Well, we're going to take 3. Why 3? Well, there's a 3 right here, and if you keep practicing your mathematics, and we'll go through developmental math, and that might help to speed things up. It's going to help you determine how you want to manipulate the problem, but I'm telling you that this is how I did it. So we're going to take 3, and remember the first video I said what we do to one side we're going to do to the other. Well, in this situation we're going to do, it's very similar. What we do to one side we're going to do to the other, but there's two inequalities here, so we're going to do it on all 3 sides. So we're going to multiply the first inequality by the number 3. So you can see where I put 3 here, I put a 3 here, and I put a 3 here, because we're just multiplying 1, the x, and the 2 by 3. So the answer would be 3 times 1, there's 3, is less than, then we have 3 times x, that's 3x, which is less than 2 times 3, that's 6. Okay, so now time to continue on. Now you got to pick your other real number, your other number that you're going to use to manipulate the problem a little bit more. Well, we used 3, well, let's use 1. So here we added 1 to each side of the inequality. So we're not multiplying, we're going to add it. So we have 1 here, we have 1 here, and we have 1 here. 3 plus 1, that's 4. And then we have 3x plus 1. Don't add these. Don't go 3 plus 1 is 4x. No, it's 3x plus 1. Okay, is less than, and then we have the 1 here, and we're going to do 6 plus 1, that's 7. Alright, so now the problem is starting to look similar to this. We're getting there, okay? We're getting there. Alright, so now the next step, because we're right here, the next step, well, what do I see up here? I see the square root symbol, okay? So, well, let's go ahead and start squaring. So we're going to square the 4, that's less than the square root of 3x plus 1, which is less than the square root of 7. Okay? So there you have it. Alright. Here's where you need to know your rule. The reciprocal rule. Alright? So after we just did that equation, so we added our square root. So we have this right here. Okay? Now we're going to continue on, and all we're doing is just placing a 1 underneath. That's it. We're just placing a 1 underneath because we're going to do the reciprocal. So remember, once you do the reciprocal, we just flipped it. That's going to flip our inequality sign. So you see they got flipped right there. Okay. So with that said, everything gets flipped. So you see this square root over 4, the square root of 4 over 1 is now on this side, and the square root of 7 over 1 is now on this side. Okay? So we did the reciprocal. So if you look at it, it looks very similar to what we were chasing. We were trying to get to this point right here, which is 1 over the square root of a is less than 1 over the square root of 3x plus 1, which is less than a half. No, that's what we have. Because if you look at 1 over the square root of 4, you might as well go ahead and just, well, what's the square root of 4? The square root of 4 is 2. Okay, so there's your 2. Bring over the 1, that's a half. Alright, then you have the 1 over the square root of 3x plus 1, and then you have 1 over the square root of 7, which is, can't do that. So therefore, there it is. We have 1 over the square root of 7 is greater than 1 over the square root of 3x plus 1 is greater than 1/2. So we went through all that work. What is it that they want? Because you might go through all that work and you might go, oh, okay, right here, square root of 7, and you type it in the math lab, square root of 7, woo! Wrong. You got it wrong. So on the test, I believe there are only 10 questions, so you can't really afford to miss. You might can afford to miss one. It just depends how many points you get on your assignment, but you need to try to get as many points possible. So let's go back to the original question. Let's take a look. You see right here, this is how the question is going to be presented. You're not going to see this part right here. You're just going to see this area right here. Okay, right there. So they want A. A lies underneath. Well, A lies underneath the square root symbol. Okay. Let's just say A lies under the hood, because we'll get into the hood later, and it might be a way to help you remember. All right. So if that's the answer that they want the exact of A. Okay. The exact of A is 7. Therefore, A equals 7. Okay. So here it's saying A equals 7, and the second to the last line we apply the reciprocal. So that's the reciprocal rule. Look into it. We'll jump into it when we go back to the developmental math course, or maybe even intermediate. But I just wanted to pop this up. I did take the class. It was tough. I think I could have got a stronger B, but it really wouldn't make a difference because a B is a B. We can go over some more practice questions. I'm not going to do any test questions, but I can say that they're very similar, just different numbers. What you need to know is the setup, just like I said in the developmental math course question that I posted on YouTube, which is I'm going to post this on YouTube. I'm not trying to violate any rules here, so I'm not going to post any test questions. But I do want to help students because this is our discussions. I mean, you had the opportunity to make extra credit points, and I was the only one really who was posting anything. I almost felt like I was talking to myself. So yeah, here, practice quiz 1. He posted and we could chat about it, we could talk about it. Nobody posted anything, just me. And that's how the whole course went. And when I talked to my professor before the class, the professor stated that he's going to let you know, he's like, this is an online algebra course. The majority of people fail it. So with that said, if you want to do your add, drop, and get out, go ahead and get out and do it on campus. I stayed with it only because I did the developmental math, I did the intermediate. I stayed with it. And then afterwards, when the class was over, I was curious. I was like, how many people passed, how many people failed? And the teacher's not allowed, I feel the teacher is not allowed to give that answer, but he did imply that I did get the B, and whatever I did to go ahead and pass it along to whoever I'm mentoring, tutoring, which would be my son, which would be anybody watching this YouTube video. So with that said, I am out.